Hi, welcome back to True Spoken. I'm Joe Statzer, Executive Director of the Butler County Republican Party. And True Spoken is brought to you by the Butler County Republican Party and produced by True Spoken Productions. You know, we're going to have a series of guests on this show. Tonight, another really great special guest. I think you're going to find him fascinating. It's State Senator George Lang, who's new to the State Senate, but not new to leadership in Butler County, and he's going to join us in just a few minutes. Ronald Reagan once said, "Don't let anyone tell you that America's best days are behind her, that the American spirit has been vanquished. We've seen it triumph too often in our lives to stop believing it now." I believe that too. Let's keep fighting, let's keep promoting, let's keep supporting, let's get out there and keep our conservative values afire and fighting for our cause. In a moment, State Senator George Lang. Hi, welcome back. We were with George Lang, State Senator George Lang. Hey, George, good to see you again. We've known each other for a very long time, 20 years or more, and I've been with you on your campaigns and in other projects, so glad to have you on the show on True Spoken.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, dig right in. You first ran for office, I think in 2003.
Yes.
For Westchester Township Trustee. What prompted you to run for office?
You know, I got to know my paternal grandmother when I was about 23 years old. I was on a business trip in Los Angeles, and she lived there, and I had the opportunity to visit with her, and she told me a story. She told me her story about how she came over from Cuba, from communist Cuba, or from Cuba as it was turning communism, with her then teenage son, who would a few years later go on to become my father. And she told me about all the risk it took when she made that trip. And some people that were on that trip with her didn't live. So she was fortunate even to make it. And I was so moved by that. And when she was done, she told me this. She said, "Georgie, when you have made it in this world, you have to give back." I didn't quite know what that would mean, you have to give back. But years later, I figured out I had to give back to the community to try to leave America a better place. So that was my main motivating factor. But another thing that was so important to me as a business guy, you know, I saw the negative impact that government regulations and the taxes have. And although well-intended, they make it very difficult on business. So I wanted to really make Westchester the most business-friendly community in the state of Ohio.
I think you did.
Well, we did.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not fair. Too many people give me credit for coming up with that vision. It was people before me that had that vision. It was trustees, Dick Alderson, Steve Powell, Carlos Todd, John Boehner. They created the vision. I like to think I put it on steroids.
Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, good line. And it really took off. I mean, Westchester is so successful. And in fact, while you were trustee, Westchester was named one of the most livable townships or places to live in the country.
Yeah.
What did you do to help facilitate that? You, your trustees, all the people in Westchester. What did you do to make that happen?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, what we set out to make Westchester the most business-friendly community in the state of Ohio. Mm-hmm. So it's the only community of its size right now that has no income tax, no earnings tax. Because remember, that's not just on individuals, Joe. It's on profits of corporations. We have a simpler zoning department, so easier regulations, and a business can come to Westchester and make more money than going to any other community in the state of Ohio. Now, the fact that Butler County commissioners have done such an amazing job getting rid of all of the county debt makes Westchester and Butler County as a whole even more attractive to businesses. So what has happened is businesses have come, people have come. Westchester is now the most affluent community in the state of Ohio. It was number 2 to Dublin for a long time, but we recently passed Dublin. Westchester recently passed Blue Ash as the number 2 provider of jobs in all of Southwest Ohio, second only to downtown Cincinnati, with a higher median income than they have in downtown Cincinnati. And here's the best part, Joe, when you put business first, Westchester hasn't had a tax increase in their general fund since the 1990s. Wow. Now, there have been police levies, school levy, fire levy, but the general fund since the 1990s. Now, that means we said no to things like public golf courses. We said no to bike paths. We said no to expanding our parks, no to community centers, no to senior centers. And we put all our money into infrastructure and into our first responders. And as a result, businesses have flourished and prospered, and our citizens have flourished and prospered.
Absolutely. That's just good conservative principles. That's what you put in place. And I think you're known for a very strong conservative, now a state senator, formerly state rep. And we'll get back into that in a second. I want to kind of go back to something you talked about at the very beginning. You came from very humble beginnings, considering where you are now. You were a foster kid.
Yeah.
And through family, perseverance, just dedication, you made it. Tell us a little bit about that background. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, so my mama had me 1 month after she turned 22 years old. I was not born George Lang. I was born George Fabian Fajardo, the son of a Cuban immigrant. My mama had me 1 month after she was 22. I was her 5th kid. My older sister, 7 years my senior. Joe, you can do the math. Shortly after I'm born, like 2 months, my father, my paternal father, who's just a kid himself, takes off. Leaves my mom with 5 kids, 3 of us in diapers. She had no education, no marketable skills, no work experience. She had a nervous breakdown, and about 4 months, when I'm about 4 months old, I became a ward of the state, and I was in foster care for the first few years of my life. While I was in foster care, my mom met a guy named Frank Lang, and she and Frank got married, and the first thing Frank did when they got married was he went and got all of us kids back together. And I can't tell you what a positive, a powerful, and a profound impact Frank Lang has had on my life. I wanted him to adopt me when I was about 10 years old. And the law in Missouri at the time said unless the paternal father gave permission, an adoption could not take place. So I could not get adopted, but I said, hey, what about getting my name changed? So I went to court to get my name changed from George Fabian Fajardo to George Fabian Lang when I'm about 10 years old. And I'll never forget it. I'm sitting with the judge right before he signed the final papers. He said, is there anything else you would like to say or do? And I said, yeah. Can I change my middle name from Fabian to Frank, after Frank Lang?
Oh, good.
And the judge said, absolutely. And he scratched out Fabian and wrote Frank in. So Frank has had an amazing impact. You know, we grew up relatively poor. 2-bedroom house. There were 8 of us, 6 kids. I was the only boy. My mom and dad and 5 sisters. So I grew up relatively poor. I was the first in my family to graduate from college, not the first to go. My older sister far exceeded all of us. She probably has 12 or 13 advanced degrees. Wow. But I was the first one to graduate from college.
Wow, that's a great, impactful story. I mean, that really is. People don't know that. They vote for you, and you're always a high vote getter. You dominated in your last election, state, county-wide. They don't know that personal story of you. That's fantastic. So you have this family background. You go on and get into business and become a very successful businessman. What was your motivation to help you become successful?
You know, a lot of it was my mom and my dad. By the way, my mom, as bad as she started out in life, she graduated from college the same year I did.
Oh, great.
And you know, what an inspiration she was to me. It shows it's not where you start in life that counts, it's where you finish. And I remember my dad, first time I had a lawn mowing job. I came home, and I don't remember how much I made, but I remember what my dad did. Let's pretend it was $3. You know, Dad, look, I made $3 mowing the grass, the neighbor's grass. No, you didn't. I said, what do you mean? He said, you used my lawnmower, so there's going to be wear and tear. So he took like 6 cents out for future repairs. He took like 14 cents out for gas, and, you know, a few other things that he took out. And at the end of the day, I was left with, you know, $2.35 on my $3. He taught me the value of profit. Now, unbeknownst to me, he did that to me for many, many years. I didn't know he was putting it into a fund that he gave me when I went off to college, which was a nice little bonus that he didn't make me aware of. So I always knew, because of the values that were instilled in me, that I was going to start my own business. When I graduated from college, I went to work for Procter & Gamble, amazing company. Sure. I loved every day I was with P&G, but I knew, and I told them from day one, you know, this is just temporary till I figure out what business I want to launch.
That's fantastic. And so you had such beginnings, and that helped prompt you into getting to be in business and be very successful and value a dollar. And now in the Westchester Trustee, the State House, the State Senate, you have a drive to make Ohio more business friendly. And you've done that in various legislative bills and things like that. Where does that conviction come from? Does it come from your family or things that you've seen in business? Where does that come from?
You know, it comes from me wanting to see Ohio make a difference. And Ohio used to make a difference, Joe. We don't anymore. When we had 24 congressmen 50 years ago, we were the swing state. We were the state you had to rely on to win. If you go back to our last 4 elections, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and both of Barack Obama's 2 victories, Ohio didn't matter in any of those 4 elections. Had our electoral votes not gone for the winner, which in some cases they didn't, it wouldn't have affected the outcome of the race, no matter what, if our votes had switched. So when we had 24 congressmen, we were relevant. Now we're at 16, we're going to 14. We're quickly becoming irrelevant. And I can prove to anyone with empirical data that 48 years ago, we started on a bad anti-business track in Ohio. We're starting to turn it. In the last 7 years, we've done some amazing things. And Joe, we had over 180,000 new businesses start in Ohio in 2020 because of some policies we put in a few years before that, including over 30,000 in 1 month. And that was during the COVID. But here's one thing to think about. 50 years ago, Ohio has 24 congressmen. Florida has 14. Today, Florida is going to 28. Ohio is going to 15. Florida has no income tax. They have a much easier zoning, fewer regulations. And what Ohio has to do, we have to become more like Florida. Not just Florida. You look at all the states that are winning, Tennessee, Wyoming, Idaho, even Indiana is showing dominance over Ohio from a perspective of attracting businesses. But we know what we got to do, and we're making those changes in Columbus to make Ohio more business friendly.
You are. It's no accident that Republicans have dominated the House and the Senate. I think there's been a lot of good things that's come up with conservative principles again, and you're trying to get back. You're right. We talked in our first episode about how in 2004, Butler County made such a difference in the Bush-Kerry election because we had such a vote. We put Bush over the top in Ohio, which won the election. But that's not been that way since then, as you mentioned. So we got to get Ohio back. You know, many decisions are made at the local level, and you know that from being a trustee, a state representative, state senator now. How do you see politics at the local level, and how important is it to connect with other local politicians, other local leaders in this divided political climate to get things done?
It's super important. I saw Vivek, I'll say his last name wrong, the guy that wrote Woke Incorporated.
I think we learned last week with Nancy Vivek.
Yeah.
We got a lesson last week.
Yeah, he spoke at the Butler County GOP headquarters in Middletown, and he said something that was so profound. I won't get his quote exact, but he said, it's more important that we have conservatives running every school district in America than we do having a conservative in the presidency. And if you think about it, he's right. The school board is roughly in Butler County between 65 and 70% of your property tax, and yet it's the least sexy job. It's not very attractive. It's not very appealing.
Thankless.
No matter what you do, you're going to upset parents.
Yep.
So we tend not to get our best and our brightest. We have some great school board members in Butler County,
yes, we do.
But I mean in Ohio in general, we tend not to get the best and the brightest. And that's so important because that has a bigger impact on you. When I was in Westchester one time, I said to the citizens of Westchester, and I meant it, you have more to fear from your local zoning department than you do from the Taliban. Because at the time, even though the Taliban were a threat to America, they really weren't a threat to your daily life in Westchester.
Butler County, right.
Yeah, where your local zoning department could have a very much have a negative effect. So it's very important we focus on the local level. And for me as a state senator, it's very important that I'm involved in every community in Butler County and with every school district. And I'll bet you I've met with about 80 to 90% of them since I've become senator. And there were a lot of new ones that I had to get to know.
Well, and you're right. I mean, local level means so much. And that's a great lesson in our voters, our constituents in Butler County, especially our conservative ones, to pay attention to who's running, what their credentials are, what they stand for, and get them elected. That's really fantastic. Turn the table a little bit here. Just shift gears, I guess. Occasionally out there, you get attacked, especially from one group who just seems to have it out for you. A lot of disinformation that goes on about George Lang. It's been proven to be false, but they keep putting it out there. They keep driving it home. How do you deal with that? Because I know that a lot of the things that's said about you are just not true. And it's just a few people, it's just a few detractors, but they really have it out for George Lang. How do you deal with all that negative discourse, knowing it's not true and knowing it's just kind of a personal attack?
Well, fortunately for me, I have a very busy life. I have 5 businesses that I run. I have my senator job, which takes the bulk of the time. So I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but people do bring it to my attention. And because of my detachment from social media, I guess it probably doesn't affect me the way it would if I were paying attention to it on a daily basis. But it affects my family. My wife, my daughter. It bothers them a lot. And, I wish I would tell the truth. There's enough things about George Lang that are honest, that you could find a reason to disagree with. But, I've been indicted for perjury by the FBI 9 times. A total lie. I was involved with a bankrupt business and I didn't pay my share. I mean, there's no factual base in any of this. And all you got to do is go back and look at the record. I was indicted by the FBI for perjury once. I was offered a deal shortly after my indictment. I turned the FBI down, no deal. And from the day I was indicted till the day of my trial was about 40 days. And it was the first unanimous not guilty verdict in the history of Cincinnati courts in over 20 years. Wow. So
there was just nothing there.
There was nothing there. And, I have proof that shows that it was probably politically motivated, and it was someone higher up going after John Boehner, but it doesn't matter. For me, I took the fight on. They offered me a deal. I said no, and we won. And I wish people would focus on the truth. There's enough things you can find to disagree with me about.
Absolutely. Republicans can disagree because we don't always agree on the same thing. There's a lot of policies out there, and you put things out there. You're not shy about stating your side on different issues. But when it gets to the negatives and the lies, and I bet you that there'll be comments on this video from some of those people going after it again. But we know from fact, and we've talked about True Spoken being about truth, that the things that they attack you on are not true, and yet they say it. And sometimes they like to say that they're from certain groups that shouldn't be saying those lies, and they do it anyway. So,
and two of the things that really hurt me the most when they say I'm anti-gun and anti-being pro-life. I've been endorsed by every major gun group. I have a 100% voting record for pro-life and pro-guns. I've been endorsed by Ohio Right to Life. Joe, I own a business in the gun industry.
Absolutely.
It's
hard to make that comment when you have a business that has to do with guns. Yeah, and
you
they
are
still
exactly
make it.
right. Yeah.
They still make it, and I know you're pro-life, and you're a very family man, and I think that should get out there too. You're very dedicated to a really wonderful family in Westchester, and so those things just they're hurtful, but you go on, and I really commend you for just continuing with what you do. And kind of in finishing this up, and this has been a great discussion. I really appreciate it. We could go on for a while. You're in the Ohio Senate now, and you're doing great things already. A lot of legislation already that you've backed and put over the top. What's your goals from here on out? Ever run for higher office? What do you want to do from here? I know you get asked this a lot.
Joe, when I first wanted to get involved in political office, I talked to a couple of people. I remember sitting down with Carlos Todd, Dick Alderson, John Boehner, and Gary Cates. And, they said, what do you want to do long term? And I don't know, maybe be governor one day. And here's one of the things that the group kind of collectively said. It's hard to plan a political career because, you can sit down and plan all day, if A, then B, then C. But if A never happens, you've just wasted a whole lot of time. My focus right now is to make Ohio more business friendly. So as a result, there's some business groups up in Ohio that have approached me about maybe one day running for governor. But my big concern is this. My message resonates in Butler County. Butler County is the most successful county in the state of Ohio. We're one of the few counties that are thriving. Our economics are growing. Our county commissioners have us debt-free. My big concern, my message of business first, will it resonate in other parts of the state? I don't think it will, and Hamilton County and Cuyahoga County and Franklin County.
Sure.
So these business groups are saying, well, you can change your message from business first to jobs first or opportunities first. And I said, that's not how it works. Jobs don't create businesses, businesses create jobs. And when you put business first, jobs go up, the wages go up, everybody wins.
Families thrive. Yeah, it's a great community. Everything follows from that.
You are exactly right.
Well, we're glad to have you in Butler County, George. You've been a tremendous success, both as a businessman and as an office holder, as a leader. You've done some tremendous things. You mentioned some great mentors there early on, all four of those. You're just a really good conservative and a great office holder. It's been a great time being your friend, a good friendship, and we really enjoyed tonight. So thank you, George, and many more successes in
Thanks,
your
Joe.
leadership. Thank you.
I appreciate it.